It was past midnight when the knock came. Jacob Harris, an old man in his mid-60s, sat alone by the fire in his cottage nestled at the edge of a small, forgotten village. Outside, a storm raged. The wind howled, rattling the windows and making the trees sway violently as if protesting the power of the storm. The lightning illuminated the sky, briefly casting the world in an eerie, electric glow, only for the darkness to swallow it again moments later. Jacob had grown accustomed to the solitude. His wife had passed years ago, and his children lived far away in the city, too busy with their lives to visit. He didn't mind, though. The quiet of his cottage, tucked away on the outskirts of the village, had always been a comfort. But tonight was different. Something in the air felt heavy, tense, as though the storm itself was carrying with it an unsettling sense of foreboding. He leaned back in his chair, closing his eyes for a moment to rest, the crackling of the fire the only sound in the otherwise silent room. Then it came again, an unmistakable knock at the door, loud, sharp. Jacob's eyes snapped open, his heart skipping a beat. The knock echoed again, this time more urgent. He froze. Visitors in this remote part of the world were rare, especially on a night like this. Who would be out there in this storm? With cautious steps, Jacob rose from his chair, his knees creaking with the movement. His hand instinctively reached for the old hunting rifle mounted above the fireplace. He wasn't expecting trouble, but the unexpected had a way of finding him. He moved toward the door, the wind outside howling as if in warning. Another knock sounded, louder this time, followed by a muffled voice, barely audible over the storm. "Please, let me in." Jacob hesitated for a moment. The voice, though, faint, carried an air of desperation. Whoever it was, they were in no shape to be standing out in the cold. He wondered briefly if it was some local fool who had lost their way, but something in the tone, something foreign, sent a chill down his spine. He set the rifle down on the table beside the door, taking a deep breath before turning the latch and pulling it open. A figure stood on his doorstep, drenched from head to toe. She was barely able to stand, her body trembling as she leaned against the doorframe for support. Her face was pale, her eyes wide and filled with fear. Long, dark hair matted against her forehead, and her clothes were torn in places, as though she had been running through thorns and brambles. At first glance, she appeared human, but something was off. Her features were too perfect, too symmetrical, and the way her skin shimmered under the dim light, it almost looked unnatural. Jacob blinked, unsure if his eyes were playing tricks on him. The storm, the darkness, the fear, they all combined to make the figure before him appear like a shadow, something not quite real. "Please," she gasped, her voice barely a whisper now. "They're coming for me." Jacob's heart pounded in his chest. Without thinking, he reached out and caught her before she collapsed completely. She was light, almost fragile, but there was a strength to her. Something hidden, something he couldn't quite put his finger on. "Who's coming for you?" Jacob asked, his voice low but laced with concern. Her eyes flickered up to his, her pupils dilated as if struggling to focus. They want me. I can't." She gasped, as if the effort of speaking was too much. She coughed, and Jacob noticed the blood staining her lips. "Please, hide me." Without thinking, Jacob stepped aside, urging her into the warmth of the cottage. As she staggered past him, her feet dragging, he caught a glimpse of her hands. They were unlike any hands he had ever seen. Her fingers were long and delicate, but they ended in sharp, almost claw-like nails, glinting in the dim light. He quickly averted his gaze, deciding it was best not to dwell on the oddities for now. "Come, sit down," he said, guiding her to the small wooden chair by the fireplace. As she sank into the chair, her breathing ragged, Jacob closed the door and locked it, his mind racing. Who was she? What was she running from, and why did she seem so different. He moved quickly to the small kitchen, fetching a clean cloth and a basin of water. He returned to her side, kneeling down to help her clean the blood from her face. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Jacob nodded, though he was far from understanding what was happening. "What happened? How did you get here?" The girl's eyes fluttered closed for a moment, her body shuddering as she tried to recover. I was running. They're hunting me." Her breath hitched, and Jacob could see her hands trembling. "I'm not like them. She stopped herself, her expression shifting to one of fear. "I can't stay here. They'll find me." Jacob sat back on his heels, unsure of what to say. "Who are you running from?" His mind was filled with questions, but he didn't know where to start. The girl looked up at him then, her gaze intense, almost piercing. "I'm not from here. I don't belong here," she said, her voice laced with a strange sorrow. "I'm not human." Jacob froze. The words hit him like a blow to the chest. Not human. He had thought, no, hoped, it was just his imagination playing tricks on him. But now, in the dim light of his cottage, her words seemed to make sense in a way he couldn't explain. Before he could respond, a loud noise cut through the storm outside, a high-pitched whine like the sound of a far-off engine. It was followed by a series of short, sharp bursts, almost like gunfire. Jacob's heart raced and the girl's eyes widened in terror. "They've found me," she whispered, barely audible. "You have to hide me." Jacob's mind was a blur, his thoughts jumbled. What was going on? Who was she? What did she mean by not human? The storm outside continued to rage, but now the sounds of something else, something unnatural, began to grow louder, closer. The old man's instincts told him he had no choice. "All right," Jacob said, his voice shaky but determined. "I'll hide you!" The girl grabbed his arm, her grip surprisingly strong. "You don't understand. They'll find you too. They always find their prey." Before Jacob could ask her to explain further, the door rattled, a soft, eerie thud shaking. The wood. He stared at the door, fear creeping into his veins. The knock had come again. This time, it was not a human knock. The pounding on the door grew louder, more insistent, as if something or someone on the other side was determined to break in. Jacob's breath caught in his throat. He had never felt such an overwhelming sense of dread, not even in the darkest days of his life. The girl beside him, shaking with fear, clutched his arm harder, her grip tightening with each thud that reverberated through the cottage. "They know I'm here," she whispered, her voice trembling. "They found me." Jacob's heart raced, his thoughts spinning. Who were these people? Or, he corrected himself, not people. What were they? And how had they found her so quickly? They were out there somewhere, closing in on the cottage. But why? What could she possibly be running from that was so dangerous? He cast a glance around the room, trying to think clearly, but panic had a way of clouding even the most rational minds. The storm outside continued to howl, but it was now drowned out by the fear thrumming through his chest. The girl's warning, her desperate plea to hide, echoed in his mind. "How did they find you?" he asked in a low, strained voice. He tried to mask the fear he felt, but his hands were trembling as he gripped the back of the chair. Her eyes were wide, her pupils dilated. With terror, her lips parted as if she were about to speak, but before she could answer, another thud came from the door, this time with such force that the entire frame shook. Jacob's breath hitched. Whatever it wasn't stopping. "I don't have much time," the girl whispered hoarsely. "Please, you have to understand, I'm not like them." Jacob furrowed his brow, confused. "What do you mean? Who are they? And why should I trust you?" Her gaze flickered to the door before she met his eyes again, an urgency in her expression. She was holding something back, Jacob could see that much. He had to know what was happening before it was too late. "They're coming for me, but they're not the only ones looking for me," she said. Her voice cracked slightly, as though the words hurt her to speak. "You don't know what they're capable of." Jacob stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Tell me, what do they want?" The girl swallowed, clearly struggling with the decision to reveal more. She shifted in her seat, her hands trembling slightly, but then, as if finally making a decision, she met Jacob's gaze. "They're not human," she said quietly. Jacob blinked, unsure if he had heard her correctly. "What?" "They're not human," she repeated more firmly this time, though still with a sense of unease. "They're something else, something much worse." Her voice dropped to a whisper, as if the very mention of them would draw their attention. "I am too." Jacob's heart raced as the gravity of her words settled in. His mind reeled as he tried to make sense of the situation. Not human. Was she saying, could she be? "Are you saying you're not human either?" he asked, almost afraid to hear her answer. Her eyes met his, and for a moment he thought he saw a flicker of something ancient beneath the surface. She nodded, her expression somber. "I'm not from here," she said quietly. "I'm from a place far beyond this planet, from a world that doesn't belong to your kind." Jacob stumbled back, a cold sweat breaking out on his brow. "What do you mean? Where are you from?" I can't explain it all now," she said quickly, her voice tinged with urgency. "But they—" She broke off, staring at the door. Again. "They'll be here soon." Jacob's mind raced. Was this some sort of joke, some elaborate hoax? The woman, no, the girl, sitting in front of him couldn't be from another world. Yet everything about her was different. Her features, the strange shimmer of her skin, her almost ethereal beauty, her odd and perfect symmetry. There was something undeniably otherworldly about her. A loud crash at the door interrupted his thoughts, and Jacob flinched. The door rattled violently, and a deep, growling voice echoed from the other side, just beyond the wood. It was low, menacing, and not human. "We know you're in there," it growled, its tone both mechanical and eerie. "Come out, and no one will be hurt." The girl's face drained of color. Her grip tightened around Jacob's arm again, her breath coming in short, quick bursts. "No, they'll destroy you! You have to get me out of here, now!" Jacob stood frozen, his mind struggling to process everything she had just told him. Non-human, from another world, dangerous beings hunting her. Was this really happening? Was it possible? Was he really hearing her words, or was this some twisted dream he couldn't wake up from? But as the sounds outside grew louder, more desperate, he knew he had no choice. If he didn't act now, they would both be caught. Whoever or whatever was on the other side of that door wouldn't stop until they had what they came for. Without thinking, he grabbed the rifle from the table and aimed it at the door, his hand shaking as he tried to steady himself. The girl stared at the gun, then looked back at Jacob, her face filled with both fear and disbelief. "Don't," she whispered urgently. "You can't stop them with that." Jacob's eyes widened. "What do you mean? They're breaking in." "They can't be stopped by weapons like that," she said in a strained voice. "You have to trust me." Jacob's head spun. What could she mean? But before he could ask her more, the door splintered violently, the wood cracking as something powerful forced its way inside. The darkness beyond the door seemed to pulse, as if a presence was pressing against it, willing it to open. Suddenly, the door burst open with a deafening crash, sending wood splinters flying into the air. Jacob flinched, his heart pounding in his chest as a shadowy figure stepped into the room. Its form was indistinct at first, too dark, too quick, but then it emerged fully into the dim light of the cottage, and Jacob gasped. The creature before him was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was tall, easily 7 feet, with a sleek, metallic-looking exoskeleton that reflected the flickering firelight in unsettling ways. Its head was featureless, just smooth, dark skin with no visible eyes, no mouth, just an eerie, almost organic shimmer that seemed to shift in the light. The girl recoiled in terror, her face turning pale. "It's them," she gasped, barely able to keep her voice steady. Jacob stood frozen, staring at the creature as it took a slow step forward, its movements deliberate, unnervingly calm. A low hum filled the room, and Jacob realized it was coming from the creature, something mechanical yet not quite machine. "I told you," the girl whispered, trembling beside him. "They're here, and now you're a part of it." The creature stepped further into the cottage, its form looming in the dim light, casting long, menacing shadows on the walls. The air felt thick, charged with an energy Jacob could not comprehend. His heart pounded in his chest, and his breath came in shallow gasps. He had no idea what he was dealing with, no idea how to fight this thing, or if he even stood a chance. His hands were clammy on the rifle, but he didn't lower it. He didn't know what it could do, but he wasn't going to let whatever this thing was take the girl, take them, without a fight. The creature's head tilted slightly, its smooth, dark surface reflecting the flickering light of the fire. It made no sound, no movement other than its slow, deliberate advance. Jacob's muscles tensed as he prepared himself to act. But then the girl's voice, barely a whisper, stopped him. "You can't stop it," she said, her voice almost drowned out by the oppressive silence that filled the room. Jacob turned to her, his eyes wide. "What do you mean? It's right there. I have to do something." Her eyes, now filled with a sorrowful understanding, met his. "You don't understand. That thing, it's not just a creature. It's hunting me, and it will kill anyone who gets in its way. And you," she paused, almost afraid to continue, "you're not ready for this. You don't know what you're up against." He shook his head, confusion and frustration flooding his mind. "Then what do I do? Just let it take you?" The girl's lips quivered, and she looked towards the creature. As it came closer, its movements unnervingly fluid. "You have to run," she said softly, almost pleading. "You have to leave now, or we'll both die." Jacob's chest tightened. The fear in her voice was raw, genuine, and for a moment he considered the possibility that she was right, that maybe, just maybe, there was no way to win against this thing. But then, something deeper inside him stirred. He wasn't going to give up. Not like this. "No," he said, firmly. "I won't leave you. We'll find a way. There has to be a way." The creature, as if sensing Jacob's resolve, stopped moving. It stood there, towering over them, its presence overwhelming. The air seemed to thicken, and Jacob felt his breath catch in his throat. It was studying them, taking in the situation with an unsettling patience, as if it had all the time in the world. Then, to Jacob's surprise, the creature spoke. "You are human," it said, its voice not a sound, but a vibration in the air, a low hum that seemed to penetrate his very bones. "I do not understand why you resist." Jacob's grip tightened on the rifle, but he didn't speak. He had no idea how to respond to that. What was it trying to say? The girl, trembling beside him, whispered, "It's trying to manipulate you. Don't listen." Jacob could hardly believe what he was hearing. The thing was speaking directly to him, communicating in a way that wasn't human, but still somehow understood. "You cannot stop me," it continued, its voice growing more insistent, more forceful. "You cannot stop what is inevitable." "What? What do you want?" Jacob finally forced out, his voice shaking with both fear and anger. The creature took another step forward, its dark, featureless face never once shifting, never once giving any hint of emotion. "I want what is mine." "What's yours?" Jacob demanded, though he could already guess the answer. The creature's head tilted again, its movement still smooth, almost unnervingly graceful. "Her." Jacob's heart skipped a beat. "You're after her, aren't you?" The girl stiffened beside him, her eyes widening with fear. She didn't answer, but the look on her face spoke volumes. She knew exactly what this thing wanted. "You'll never get her," Jacob said, his voice barely above a whisper, but filled with determination. He didn't care if it sounded foolish. He didn't care how impossible the odds were. He wasn't going to let this thing take her. The creature seemed to pause, as if considering Jacob's words. Then, with terrifying speed, it lunged forward, its arm extending in a blur of motion. Jacob barely had time to react. He fired the rifle, the loud crack of the gunshot echoing through the small room. But the creature didn't stop. It didn't even flinch. The bullet seemed to pass right through it, as if it were nothing more than smoke or mist. The creature's arm shot out, and before Jacob could even think to move, it grabbed him by the throat, lifting him off the ground with ease. The world went, black as the pressure on his neck constricted. He gasped for air, but it was as if his lungs were being crushed. His vision blurred, and for a moment he thought he was going to pass out. "I told you!" The creature's voice resonated in his head, cold and emotionless. "You cannot stop me." Jacob's hands instinctively clawed at the creature's wrist, but it was like trying to break free from solid stone. He was utterly powerless. Desperation clawed at him as his vision darkened further. Then, just as quickly as it had grabbed him, the creature released its grip, dropping him to the floor with a thud. Jacob gasped for air, his lungs burning as he coughed and wheezed. He struggled to get to his feet, his head spinning. But when he looked up, the creature was no longer in front of him. It had vanished. The girl, her face pale, was staring at him in shock. Are you all right?" she asked, her voice trembling. Jacob nodded weakly, though he could hardly believe he was still alive. He had come so close to dying, so close to losing everything, and yet the creature had let him go. Why? "Why didn't it kill me?" Jacob asked, his voice hoarse. The girl swallowed hard. "It's not about killing you. It's about getting what it wants, and it wants me." Jacob's mind was racing. There was so much he didn't understand. Why had the creature spared him? What was the real reason it was after her? And what the hell had just happened? "We can't stay here," she said urgently, her voice shaking. "We have to leave. They'll be back. They always come back." Jacob stood up, still feeling the weight of the creature's grip on his throat. His body was trembling, but he couldn't let himself show fear. Not now. Not when everything was on the line. "We need to figure out how to stop this," Jacob said, more to himself than to her. "We need to find out what's going on." The girl's eyes filled with sorrow. "I don't know if we can. But if we don't leave now, we'll be dead before we even have a chance." Jacob nodded grimly. "Then we run. We figure it out on the way." But as they moved to the door, a low, guttural sound echoed from outside, closer this time. The hunt was on. The night outside the cottage was pitch black, save for the occasional flicker of distant lightning illuminating the trees. The storm that had been brewing all evening was now in full force. Rain lashed against the windows, thunder rumbled across the sky, and the wind howled through the trees. Yet inside the cottage it felt eerily calm, almost as if the storm itself had been swallowed by the tension that hung heavy in the air. Jacob and the girl were on the move, but the events of the last few minutes weighed heavily on both of them. The creature, whatever it was, had given them a brief reprieve, but Jacob knew it wouldn't be long before it returned. He had no doubt that whatever was hunting her, whatever had attacked them, was still out there, watching. "We have to leave now," Jacob urged, his voice sharp. He wasn't sure what was worse, the creature that could tear through him like paper, or the relentless sense of urgency gnawing at him. They couldn't sit around, waiting to be found. But the girl, her face pale and haunted, was frozen in place, staring at the open door as if she could will herself to disappear into the storm outside. "Where will we go?" she asked, her voice soft, almost too quiet to be heard over the raging storm. She wasn't looking at him. Her eyes were distant, lost in something far darker than the storm itself. Jacob took a step closer. "We'll figure it out. Just come on." The girl shook her head, her eyes flickering to him at last, but there was something in them that sent a chill down his spine. Desperation, regret, fear. "Jacob, you don't understand," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "I'm not just some innocent person caught up in something she doesn't understand. I know what's happening. I've always known." Jacob froze. His mind raced, but the pieces didn't fit together. "What do you mean? You know what's going on. You're telling me you've been running from this thing for a while?" She nodded, but her gaze never left the storm outside. "Not just from it, from my own past." Jacob's stomach twisted. She'd said something before about running, about not being able to stop what was coming. But this was something deeper. The creature was hunting her, that much was clear. But why? What was it about her that made her a target? He couldn't keep wondering. He needed answers, and she was the only one who could give them. "Tell me," Jacob demanded, his voice softer this time, but no less urgent. "Please, I need to know what's happening. What's going on with you? Why is it after you?" The girl took a deep breath, her chest rising and falling rapidly as she tried to steady herself. She looked at him then, her eyes dark with the weight of a truth she'd clearly kept buried for a long time. "Because I'm not just a human girl. I'm not even from this planet." Jacob felt a cold rush of disbelief wash over him. He took a step back, his mind struggling to process the words she'd just said. What do you mean? You're not human." The girl looked at him with a sad, almost regretful expression. "I'm from a planet far from here, a place you wouldn't even believe exists if I told you." Jacob's mouth went dry, but his mind couldn't wrap around what she was saying. She couldn't be serious. He blinked a few times, trying to clear his thoughts. "So, you're telling me you're not from Earth? You're an alien?" The girl closed her eyes for a moment, as if the very word pained her. "Yes, I'm an alien, a member of a species that has been at war for centuries. And this creature, the one that's hunting us, it's from my homeworld. It's part of the army that's been sent to retrieve me." Jacob felt the blood drain from his face as the reality of her words began to sink in. He'd thought she was just an ordinary girl caught up in something she couldn't understand. He'd never imagined, never even considered, that the girl he'd been protecting was, in fact, a being from another world. Why? Why would they want you? Jacob's voice came out strangled. "What could they possibly want with you?" The girl's face hardened, and for the first time Jacob saw the full weight of what she was carrying. "Because I'm the key to ending the war. I'm the last of a royal bloodline, a bloodline that could bring an end to centuries of conflict. And the people who want me, they'll stop at nothing to make sure I'm theirs." Jacob's mind was reeling. The girl he'd been trying to protect wasn't just some random alien. It wasn't a chance encounter, a freak accident. She was a weapon. She was royalty, and her very existence held the power to change the fate of her entire species. "Wait," Jacob said, his thoughts racing. "You're telling me that if they get you, if they succeed in capturing you, they can end the war?" The Kash girl nodded grimly. "That's what they believe, and they'll do whatever it takes to make sure I'm in their hands, even if it means killing anyone who gets in their way." Jacob's heart dropped into his stomach. He'd never thought he'd be in this kind of situation, never thought he'd be caught up in a galactic conflict, especially not one that involved a war between alien species. The stakes were higher than anything he'd ever imagined. And suddenly protecting her felt like something far more dangerous than he'd expected. "So what now?" he asked, feeling a mixture of helplessness and resolve. "If they're after you, if they're willing to kill anyone who tries to stop them, how do we fight back?" The girl didn't answer at first. She stared into the storm outside, her face blank, as if she was seeing something Jacob couldn't. "I don't know," she whispered. "I don't know how to fight them. I never wanted this. I never wanted any of this." Jacob stepped closer, his resolve strengthening. "You didn't choose this, but you're here now. We'll figure this out together." She turned to him then, her eyes wet with unshed tears. For the first time, she looked truly vulnerable. "You don't understand. There's nothing we can do to stop them. Not without understanding what they're really after." Jacob clenched his fists. He'd had enough of feeling helpless. "Then tell me what we need to know. We have to fight back. We can't just sit here and wait to die." The girl's voice faltered as she spoke, her words heavy with sorrow. "You don't understand what they really want from me. They don't want me for my bloodline. Not entirely. There's something else, a power, a force inside me that I didn't even know existed until they came for me." Jacob's mind reeled again. What kind of power? The girl closed her eyes, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. "I can't control it. I don't know how, but it's what they're after, and it's why the creature is hunting me." Jacob felt a shiver run down his spine. The stakes had just become far higher than he'd realized. This wasn't just about her survival anymore. It was about the very nature of the universe, about forces far beyond what he could comprehend. The storm outside seemed to grow louder, as if reflecting the growing tension inside the cottage. The girl's revelation had changed everything, but it had also raised more questions than answers. "How do we stop them?" Jacob whispered. But he already knew that the answer wouldn't come easily, not unless they uncovered the full truth. Behind this alien power, and what it truly meant for their survival, the storm outside had intensified. Rain hammered against the roof of the cottage, and the wind howled like a wild animal in the night. Jacob could hear the low growl of the creature, a chilling sound that sent waves of dread through him. It was closer. He could feel it. Inside, the girl was trembling, her hands wrapped tightly around her arms as if trying to hold herself together. Her eyes were wide, darting nervously to every corner of the room. Jacob's heart ached for her. She had already been through so much, and now this, the creature hunting them, the secret she'd revealed, was pushing her to the brink. "Are you okay?" Jacob asked, though he already knew the answer. He didn't know how she could be okay, not with everything she was carrying. But he had to ask. She didn't answer right away. Her gaze was distant, as if her mind were elsewhere. Her thoughts seemed to be swirling in a storm of their own, far darker than the one raging outside. "I don't know," she whispered finally, her voice hoarse. "I don't know how much longer I can keep running from this. I can feel it, the power inside me. It's growing stronger, and I can't control it. I never could." Jacob frowned. He had suspected as much. The way she had described the power, the way she spoke of it as if it were an entity of its own. It wasn't just some byproduct of her alien biology. No, this power was alive somehow, and it was tied to her very existence. "What is it?" Jacob asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "What exactly is this power? And why does it scare you so much?" She looked at him then, her eyes haunted. "It's the same power that ended the war on my world, the power to control everything, time, space, even life itself. It's a force that can reshape the very fabric of reality, and if they get their hands on it, on me, they'll control everything." Jacob's blood ran cold. He had known that the stakes were high, but hearing her describe the power in such terms was chilling. The girl, the alien girl, wasn't just some fugitive on the run. She was a living weapon, one that could change the balance of the universe. "But why don't you want to use it?" Jacob asked, his mind struggling to keep up. "If it can end the war, why not just use it?" The girl's face twisted in anguish. "You don't understand. It's not that simple. The power it's too much for anyone to control. Even if I wanted to end the war, it would come with consequences. Consequences that would destroy everything around me. The people I care about, the universe itself." Jacob could see the fear in her eyes, the weight of the burden she carried. She wasn't just running from the creatures who were hunting her. She was running from herself, from the potential destruction her own power could cause. "I don't know how to control it, Jacob," she whispered. "I never have. And that's why they're after me. They think they can use me, control me. But they don't realize the power is beyond anyone's control. It's a force of nature, not a weapon. Jacob clenched his fists. He had to do something. He couldn't just sit there waiting for the creature to find them. He had to protect her. He had to protect them. The thought of her, this girl who had become so much more to him than just a stranger, falling into the hands of those who sought to control her power. It was unbearable. He looked at her, his resolve hardening. Then we'll figure it out. We'll stop them before they can get you. We'll find a way to control this force. We'll do it together. She shook her head, her lips trembling. You don't understand, Jacob. I've been running my entire life, and I can't keep running. The power, it's inside me. I can't suppress it anymore. If I don't... The words hung in the air, but they didn't need to be said. If she didn't stop it, if she didn't control the power within her, it would consume her. The storm outside raged louder, as if echoing the chaos inside her. Jacob could see the terror in her eyes. She was afraid of what she might become, what the power might make her do, but there was no time to dwell on it now. The creature was closer than ever, and they had to act fast. We don't have much time, Jacob said, his voice low but determined. We have to move. The girl's eyes flickered, and for a brief moment Jacob thought he saw something else in her gaze, something dangerous, something primal. She was no longer the frightened girl who had sought shelter in his cottage. She was something more, and she was starting to realize just how much power she truly had. I can't run anymore, Jacob, she said softly, but the conviction in her voice was unmistakable. I have to face this. I have to face them. Jacob's heart skipped a beat. What are you saying? I'm not just some runaway anymore, she said, her voice steadying. I'm not going to hide. I'm going to end this. The weight of her words hit him like a ton of bricks. She wasn't talking about running anymore. She was talking about confronting the creatures, confronting the war. And the power inside her, the one that could end the war or destroy everything, was at the center of it all. Jacob's instincts screamed at him to stop her, to hold her back. But he saw the look in her eyes. The same look he had seen in himself when he made impossible decisions, the need to fight, to survive, to protect. It was something he couldn't ignore. Are you sure? He asked, his voice breaking. We don't know what's going to happen if you unleash that power. It could destroy everything. I have no choice, she said, her voice calm but filled with determination. If I don't stop them, they'll keep coming. They'll keep hunting me. And I won't be able to run anymore. Not from them, not from the power inside me. Jacob swallowed hard. He could see it now. This was no longer just about survival. It was about her accepting who she truly was. And he wasn't sure what that would mean for them. But one thing was certain. They had to act, and they had to act now. A sudden, deafening crash echoed through the room. Jacob spun around just in time to see the door burst open, splintering under the force of the creature's strike. The storm outside was nothing compared to the storm that was about to break inside. The wind howled outside, its fury almost a warning of what was to come. Jacob's breath was shallow as he stood in the center of the small cottage, eyes locked on the door that had just been shattered by the force of the creature's attack. The storm outside raged, but the real storm had entered their lives. There was no running now, no more hiding. The creature was here. The girl stood beside him, her body trembling but her gaze unwavering. The fear that had haunted her was gone, replaced by something much more dangerous, resolve. She had made her choice, and now, with no other option, Jacob had to trust her. Are you sure about this? Jacob asked, his voice hoarse. She nodded, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim light of the room. I've spent my entire life running from this power. I've hidden from it, tried to suppress it, but no more. I can't keep hiding, Jacob. I can't keep running from who I am. Jacob's heart ached for her. He had never wanted this for her, never wanted her to face this burden alone. But now, standing beside her, he realized that there was no one else who could do this. She was the only one who could stop the creature and maybe, just maybe, save them all. Before Jacob could respond, the creature's growl echoed through the room, sending a shiver down his spine. It was close, too close. "Get ready," the girl whispered, her voice barely audible over the sound of the storm outside. Jacob nodded, his hand instinctively reaching for the small knife he kept tucked in his pocket, though he knew it was no match for the creature they faced. But it wasn't the creature he was worried about now. It was her, the power inside her. The creature slithered through the broken door, its massive form filling the doorway. Its eyes, glowing a sickly yellow, locked onto the girl. It was silent. Now its attention solely focused on her. Jacob could feel the weight of its gaze, as though it was measuring her, deciding how to end her existence. "Why?" the girl whispered, her voice trembling, but her gaze never leaving the creature. "Why are you doing this? Why are you hunting me?" The creature's eyes narrowed, and a low, guttural sound rumbled from its throat. It was speaking, but not in words. Its thoughts reached out to hers, a presence that filled her mind. "You are the key," the creature's voice resonated in her mind. "The key to everything. You don't understand your power, but I do. It's what we need. The war can end, but only if you submit. Only if you allow us to control you." Jacob's heart pounded in his chest. He could feel the girl's fear, but it wasn't the same fear as before. Now there was something else in her eyes, something stronger. She wasn't just scared anymore. She was angry. "No," she said, her voice firm, a challenge that shook the walls of the cottage. "I will never let you control me. I will never let anyone control me again." The creature let out a low, menacing hiss, and for a moment Jacob thought it was going to attack. But then it paused, studying her with an unsettling calmness. "You cannot escape what you are," the creature said. "You cannot escape your destiny. The power is yours to command. It is in your blood, in your very soul." The girl's hands clenched into fists at her sides. She took a deep breath, her chest rising and falling with the effort of holding back the storm inside her. The power inside her was a tempest, a force of nature that threatened to consume her if she let it. And now, with the creature standing before her, waiting for her to submit, she realized something. She didn't have to submit. She could fight. She could choose to fight. "I don't care about your destiny," she said, her voice filled with a quiet fury. "I won't be your weapon." Jacob watched as the girl's eyes began to glow brighter, the power within her awakening, thrumming with energy. He knew this wasn't just a battle of strength. It was a battle of wills. And this time she was in control. The creature seemed to sense it too. It recoiled, its yellow eyes widening in a mixture of fear and confusion. It wasn't prepared for this. It wasn't prepared for her to fight back. "You are a fool," the creature hissed. "You cannot win. You don't understand what you're up against." The girl didn't respond. She didn't need to. Instead, she reached out and the air around her seemed to shift, crackling, with an invisible force. The storm outside intensified, and the wind screamed in fury, as if the world itself was reacting to her power. Jacob could feel the ground beneath him vibrate, the air thick with energy. The girl was controlling it. She was controlling everything. "You're right," she said softly, almost to herself. "I didn't understand, but now I do." With a sudden, sharp movement, the girl raised her hand, and the creature let out a terrifying roar. The ground beneath its feet cracked open, and with a flash of blinding light, the creature was sent flying backward, its massive form crashing into the walls of the cottage. The air was thick with the sound of its screams, but the girl didn't flinch. She held her ground, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. Jacob watched in awe, his heart racing. He had never seen anything like this. The girl was no longer just a scared alien on the run. She was a force of nature, and nothing was going to stop her. The creature, now severely weakened, struggled to rise, but the girl didn't give it the chance. With another wave of her hand, the energy around her exploded, and the creature was consumed in a flash of light, its screams dying out in an instant. For a moment, there was silence. The storm outside had calmed, and the world seemed to hold its breath. Jacob looked at the girl, his heart heavy with admiration and fear. She had done it. She had stopped the creature. But at what cost? The girl stood there, her body trembling, her face pale. The energy she had unleashed was too much, too overwhelming. She had given everything to stop the creature, and now she was paying the price. Jacob rushed to her side, his hands gripping her shoulders gently. "Are you okay?" She looked at him, her eyes still glowing, but there was something different about them now, something softer, more human. "I did it, Jacob. I stopped it, but I don't know how long I can hold on." Jacob's heart clenched. He knew she wasn't talking just about the battle. She was talking about the power inside her, the force that threatened to consume her from within. But she had made her choice. She had chosen to fight, to stand against her destiny, and in doing so, she had saved them both. "We'll figure this out," Jacob said, his voice steady. "You're not alone anymore. We'll find a way." The girl smiled, a faint, fragile smile. "I know. For the first time, I know." Epilogue. The choice, the storm outside had cleared, and the world was calm once more. The girl, no longer just a fugitive, stood beside Jacob, her eyes no longer filled with fear, but with hope. They had both been changed by the events that had unfolded. The power inside her, though dangerous, was not a curse. It was a gift she had learned to control, a gift she could now use to protect the ones she loved. As they stood together, Jacob realized that the journey was far from over. The universe was vast, and their story had only just begun. But for now, they were free to choose their own destiny. And that, in the end, was all they had ever wanted. The end.